Hi, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to start this series of interviews. As a creative business owner, I realized that we interact with so many different types of businesses in different industries, and each time we work with a new client, we learn so much from them. And yeah, we figured that it would be really interesting to share this knowledge for other small businesses and between our own clients even. So after a year like 2020, we wanted to focus on creativity and how it has helped us overcome challenges and stay motivated throughout any challenge that we go through. So today I'm talking to Amy, who runs several businesses. Um, Thank you for joining us. Why don't you start with introducing yourself and what you do and what your businesses are?
Sure. So I'm Amy, Shack Egan, and I'm the founder and CEO of Modern Rebel and its sister company, Rebel Virtual, and also a new startup called Bandit. So I wear a lot of different hats. I think entrepreneur, CEO is really the simplest way to explain what I do. And I'm really, really interested in relationships, couples, and all of my businesses touch upon relationships and connections. So Modern Rebel and Rebel Virtual are both event planning companies. One is specific to virtual events, and the other I started 6 years ago and specific to weddings. And my most recent business is also specific to relationships and couples, but it's actually a tech platform. So it's a little bit different, not dealing with weddings and events, but dealing with really the events of life, relationships and health around relationships.
Mm. And I'm wondering, I saw when you launched Virtual Rebel, why did you like really make it sort of a separate entity instead of just like a new tab that you could open on Modern Rebel?
Yeah. So Modern Rebel, we do anywhere every year between 50 to sort of, I think at its peak, we've done about 65 weddings every single year. And so it's definitely in the wedding space. We really talk a lot in our marketing and everything that we do about sort of couples, and it's really geared towards the modern couple. And so when we were thinking about what we were going to offer through Rebel Virtual, we started with virtual weddings, and we still offer that. But we knew we didn't want that to be the only thing that we were going to offer. And if you've dipped your toes into corporate space, and I know you work with startups or corporate clients and things like that, they're just not looking for your services if your only really focus is on weddings. So it was really going to be very difficult to like change that target of Modern Rebel, and we didn't really want to do that because that business lives on and is continuing. So we thought, why don't we just launch a new website and do something a little bit different? And it was kind of more fun. It was kind of like, ooh, what are they doing, rather than just like a pop-up on our website.
Mm. Yeah, it must have been an exciting project to have, especially during the pandemic and when things didn't felt scary for everyone. So, and before we really get into how you reacted and how you bounced from the pandemic, I just want to ask you quickly how you came up with the idea for your main business, and because Modern Rebel is really an interesting take on the wedding industry. So how did you come up with that and see a gap in the industry?
Yeah, so I was doing the New York hustle. I was working 3 jobs, and I didn't really have a direction. I didn't have the idea. My friend was engaged and she was sort of stressed out, and she asked for my help. And so I started helping her, and I found that I was really good at the project management side and organization, and I really enjoyed it. And she looked at me and she's like, you should do this for a living. You should, I'm like, what? And she's like, you could be a wedding planner. And I'm like, no. I was like, I can't think of anything less cool. And that is so, and I mean, you're talking to primarily a wedding planner. I mean, that's the bulk of what I do now. But I really thought, like, the wedding industry, I don't feel like I relate to it. I don't like it. It just felt frilly and fussy. So I really shelved that. I was like, no way. And I think that it just kind of ate away at me a little bit. Like I just realized over time that why wasn't there, you know, a wedding planning company that I could point to that felt like it reflected the diverse, awesome, cool, modern relationships that I knew? And why weren't there ones that I knew of at the time that were giving back, and maybe I could do it differently? That's really all I thought. And it's not like I woke up one day and I was like, I'm going to start a business. And I think that's something that people get wrong a lot. They think like, oh, they need to just drop everything and like they have to have the business plan and they have to start a business. It's like you just start chipping away. Like I just started trying it, and I still worked all these other jobs, and slowly but surely I let those go. I came up with a name. I changed the name. Nothing is perfect, but you just get started. And then about 2.5 years into the business, I finally let go of my last job, which was a nanny job. And I was like, okay, I can do this full time, because we had about, I don't know if it was like 25 weddings on the books for that upcoming year. So I'm like, okay, I need to like focus fully on this business, and it's been great.
And did you already have people working with you when you like went full time?
No one full time with me.
25 weddings on your own. That seems insane.
Oh, I did them. I've done that on my own. There was some seasons where it was a lot. I have one funny memory where like I did a wedding and then I ran a half marathon the next day, and then I did a wedding the next day. It was like a Friday wedding, Saturday half marathon, Sunday wedding, and I hardly could walk at the Sunday wedding. But there's things that you do when you're starting a business that you're like, I would never do again. But I also really loved it, and I do love it. Like I really love the people that we work with. Like I'm biased, but I think our couples are the best. Like they're really, really down to earth and cool. And so, there's a lot of learning and a lot of like hiccups, but mostly I did it. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah. And I like what you said about starting step by step. And it's something that we can do like as a service business as well. I only needed a computer, and for you, like obviously it's a very different setup, but you basically were a project manager, I guess, at first. Mm-hmm. So you didn't have a big overhead or anything. So yeah, it's very helpful for us. And it just came up to me, how did you find the name? Because naming things is so hard, and it's a great name.
Yeah, it is. It's funny, the name. So I started the company, like again, when I say I started a company, if you'd asked me when I started, you're starting a company, I would have been like, no, I'm not. I would have told you I was trying something. I didn't think of it that way. I really didn't. And maybe that was just self-preservation. I was nervous.
Yeah.
But I called it, eventually I realized I was sort of doing some wedding planning for some friends of friends or mutual friends. And I realized that I should have a name. And so I was like, okay, it's a modern version. I started brainstorming with your friends, and roommates. And I came up with a Modern Vow. And then my first big gig was actually a birthday party. And that's a really fun story because I was still babysitting on the side, and I showed up to babysit. And, I think I'd read some book where they said, just tell everyone about your business. You never know who is going to help you along the way. Mm. And I ended up telling this woman their like apartment opened up on this, the elevator opened up into their apartment. And it was just like, wow, I got to tell this woman about my business. And babysat her kids and told her, and I just said, hey, my day job is I'm an event planner. I didn't think she would do anything with that, but she called me up, I think a week later, and she's like, I'm planning my 40th birthday party. She's like, can you help me? I think you said you were an event planner. And I was like, absolutely. And it was the biggest job that I had up until that point. And she really changed the trajectory. And I've since told her, and I'm in touch with her, and she's fantastic. She's also actually a female entrepreneur. But that was the wake up call where I went, oh, I shouldn't call it a Modern Vow because I'm going to do birthday parties. I was like, great. The wedding industry, I didn't really want to be here in the first place. I'll do birthday parties. And so I changed the name to Modern Rebel, which was an idea that I had about an email newsletter I wanted to start called the Modern Rebel newsletter. And my best friend, Sophie, who's my dear friend from high school, she was like, why don't you just call the company Modern Rebel? And I was like, I kind of like it. And then the woman that I nannied for all the time, one of the women, she was like, that doesn't sound like a wedding planning company. And I was like, exactly. I was like, that's it.
That's the point. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I didn't know that actually. Because yeah, we met when I attended the Freelancing Females virtual conference, which was so great. And you were a mentor there. And I've asked you many, many questions since, but not this one, I don't think so. Or I didn't get such a detailed version. So yeah, and so you touched on, I think, one of the questions that I wanted to talk about, which is how you get clients. And for me, like, word of mouth has been incredibly helpful in my business. So I assume it's a big way that you got your first clients too, word of mouth and meeting people.
Absolutely. I think that your reputation and how you treat people is just super important. And definitely the first few clients. I mean, I went from 3 clients the first year I was trying the business to 6 the next year to basically 25 and then 50 and then so on. So it wasn't like one new client every year. It really, I think if you treat people well and do a good job, it can double, triple. And staying in touch with those people and trying to just, sure that you're adding value is important. And nowadays, I mean, I think there's more, like, now I have a little bit, I started the business with 5,000 of my own savings, just for, and I didn't use that like right away, right? Like that was kind of over probably the span of 2.5 years. And then I was getting money from events and stuff, and I just put everything back in. I didn't take any of it for myself because I was still working. But I think that you realize eventually that you do need to pour some money into that side of the business. Like at the beginning, when you're just maybe employing yourself or you're not even taking a salary, you don't need to. But now, we do have like a marketing budget, and we do manage that. And there are some subscriptions that we have, but we assess it every year. Like, and this year's been so different. Like things that worked before don't work now. And so you just have to be constantly assessing.
Yeah. And I think you have to be constantly creative with how you come up with new solutions. And that leads us to so for us, I guess for my business, it was in March 2020 that I realized it was going to be a very different year, and it became really scary. For you who are in an industry that really relied on events and everything, when did you realize that things were changing course, and what did you do initially to react to that?
Well, I would say that it was actually Friday the 13th in March. I don't know if people realize it was a Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Right? Do you remember? It was like, ooh, spooky. I had a really big event rescheduled, and it's since been rescheduled again. But we rescheduled it 2 days before. So I remember being like, it was the 13th, I guess. And the 11th. And I remember being like, wow, I can't believe that this huge 3-day event that I've spent a year or more planning is getting moved. And that was a wake-up call moment. And then everything sort of dominoed from there. I mean, we had 60-something weddings on the books for 2020. And like dominoes, everything was either rescheduled, canceled, moved, and postponed indefinitely. So I realized pretty quickly, and I don't know, I don't like to wait around. I'm not a person, I don't think anybody likes waiting, but I'm a particularly impatient person. And so I think that I'd much rather deal with the situation and do something, even if it, means falling on my face and failing and trying something, than just sitting and waiting for like someone to give me news. I hate that. So I was like, okay, we need to make some changes immediately.
Mm-hmm. And is that right away when you created this virtual side of your business, or did that
No,
take
there
more
was
time?
like a mourning period. There was like, I think there was a few weeks there where I was like having to like go through spreadsheets and assess my numbers and assess like all the stuff that like creatives and entrepreneurs, like, I don't enjoy that. Like, I don't really like dealing with that side of the business. Like, I really enjoy like people and, being creative and thinking of solutions in like this fun way. I don't enjoy being like going into spreadsheets and crossing out things. So there was definitely a period of like, we need to brace for the worst and cut back.
Mhm.
And so we had to sort of cut some people that were working with us in a contractor position that was hard, who were dear to me and was very hard to do. I had to scale back some people's hours. I had to reassess just the landscape of looking at the next year and pretend like, well, let's project if nothing comes in. And then it was working with clients and dealing with their emotional bit behind, you know, their events. That was a lot. I mean, they plan their wedding. I mean, it's a really important, exciting day of your life. So I had to like be emotional and allow myself that space to sort of grieve. And then by the end of April, I was ready to rev back up. But if you'd asked me at the end of March if I was going to get there, I don't know if I would have said I'll get there.
Yeah. Oh, that's so hard, but yeah, it's a beautiful story. And I think also like in March for me, and even at the beginning of April, we still didn't see necessarily the long-term view. Like weddings for me and my friends, like wedding were postponed to the fall or even the summer.
Right.
Like in France, some people had their wedding in June or tried to.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you know that you were gonna have to think long-term?
Well, we had some couples that moved to the fall, but we definitely had conversations where we said, you may end up having to move this again. We just don't know, you know? And I think that's been I think one of the many frustrating things about this year for so many people, especially small business owners, is it's so hard to make a plan when there's no true plan coming from government or coming from like, there was no like, okay, well, we kind of know what's coming. It was really just a total, you know, blank canvas. We really didn't know. So it was really hard to guide people because that's what we do for a living. We guide people. And so it was very challenging. I was very grateful for patient couples that got it and were, you know, willing to be patient and work together and collaborate. And really by, I would say by June, we knew that the fall was not going to look the same because the fall is a really busy time for us normally. And by June, I was going, yeah, this is not, you know, we're going to be focused on some other projects and things because this is not going to be the year that we predicted.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you also work on Bandit. So first, it must be, I think that's also something that is so helpful when entrepreneurs think of multiple revenue streams and multiple things that I can do, especially like as we've seen this year, when you have different revenue streams. When did you start working on Bandit? And I assume it took a lot of your time as well. So, which, you know, like you also had to focus on your 2 other businesses. So how did that unfold?
Yeah, there's only so much time. Okay, so the idea for Bandit came to me a long time ago. I mean, probably like, definitely over a year ago, maybe almost 2 years now. I don't know, maybe a year and a half. I don't remember exactly. But I started getting really obsessed with this question of like, we have so many wedding tools and so many ways to get married and so few ways to stay married.
Oh yeah,
and
that's a good idea.
I was like, there's so many wedding like websites like Zola or Minted or like things that geared towards couples that are helping them plan their weddings, you know, but there's like nothing out there that's helping people stay married. And I was kind of like, that bums me out because I got married in 2018. And I think that when people really meet that person, and most people will have a significant relationship in their lifetime. That's just, you know, statistics. People will, whether they stay married or not, or whether they get married, they'll have a significant romantic relationship in their lifetime. And it's a game changer. Like when you have that relationship, it changes everything. It changes how you approach your work, how you bring yourself to work, how you bring yourself to your family, how you bring yourself to your physical health, like everything in your relationship, it affects every part of you, right? Like if you're having a terrible time in your relationship, you think you're bringing your best self to work? Absolutely not. Like you think you're probably like in the best like physical health of your life. A lot of times these things are interconnected. And so I was just kind of obsessing over this idea of well, why as a culture have we not figured this out? Like, why have we not even tried? I couldn't even point to like anything that was trying. So, so that was the idea. And I just started tinkering. I started chipping away. I didn't say, today I'm opening a business. This has been almost 2 years in the making of me iterating on this idea. But when the pandemic hit, I had a night where I couldn't sleep. And probably because I was so stressed out and dealing with my current business. But I had a light bulb sort of moment of, wait, what if it's a technology platform where people can, I had the puzzle pieces came together. And so instead of going back to sleep, I decided to get up and write it out. And I sort of just started going a little bit nuts, and I was telling my husband about it. And then eventually he's like, eventually, like, I didn't need to go to bed. And he's like, have a shot of whiskey and go to bed. And I did. But I woke up the next day and I said, I want to try this. How do I try this? I'm not a software engineer. And it was this, website idea. And so I reached out to some people, and this was April. So this was around the time I was doing the virtual. Sometimes that energy is connected. I was launching the other thing, and I do feel like most people have great ideas in their lifetime. I think few people act on the momentum. So many people, you have a good idea and you go to bed and you say, maybe someday.
Yeah, absolutely. And usually when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, why did I think that was so cool? Like, because you've kind of lost the magic of it, I guess. But yeah, like you said, if you really push through it,
have to go after it. And then once you start, there are days where you want to quit, but once you put in a good amount of effort into something, you usually want to see it through. And if you really do care about the solution to this problem that you're trying to solve, you stay at it. And there are days, like I had a terrible day on last Friday, and I was like, I can't focus on anything. And you know what? I woke up the next day, and I try not to work on the weekends, but I was like, I feel way better on this Saturday. I'm going to get some work done. So the idea has been a long time coming, but I started working with my co-founder in April to develop a way to test the idea online. And we did a bunch of sessions with couples, a lot of Modern Rebel past couples, which is really fun, to understand what they would want out of a platform like this. And we are now in beta testing this month with more couples, and we're live in January. So it's been a real roller coaster.
Yeah, but it went pretty fast. It probably seemed long to you, but for a company to be born in such a short time, I think it's still pretty quick.
I know. I think everything could be faster to me. I'm like, that's the impatient stuff.
You seem to be that kind of person.
Like, come on, do it yesterday.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and so to go back a bit to this really difficult period in the last year, is there anything that you sort of put into place in April when you really realized that we were, like, the year was drastically changing? Is there anything that you put into place that didn't end up being helpful or that you abandoned?
There's so many things that you try that don't work out. I feel like for every one thing that works, there was 100 things I tried that didn't work. I don't know, but I don't dwell on them too much. I think we put together probably so many different marketing packages for virtual events, and probably lots of them didn't see the light of day, or were sent out and then changed and didn't work, or we changed pricing because we realized that was we were way undervaluing ourselves, or what have you. I do remember I was trying to get press, because whenever you have an idea, of course, it's helpful to get the word out. And I remember emailing, I reached out to I really love the Modern Rebel network. I reached back out to a former Rebel bride and her partner, and asked them about connections to some journalists. And oh man, they were amazing. They helped me create this spreadsheet of amazing contacts. And I reached out to all of them, and I think 3 of them of the 30 got back to me, and they were all like, have you gotten any press yet? And I was like, well, I'm trying here. And so one of them was like, okay, if you have a wedding, I'll feature it. It was for a virtual wedding. And I said, and they, they wanted it soon. And I didn't think I had one at the time. It was really after we'd launched and we didn't have one yet. And I said, I'll have one to you in like 2 weeks time. Give me 2 weeks. And so I think, we ran a giveaway, and that giveaway didn't end up being the thing. We ended up getting a wedding before that giveaway actually we saw that through. But I went back to that person and she said, okay, I'll do it. And it was a live segment on like CBS, or it was like a TV segment on CBS, which was kind of cool. But it was fun because I got to go back to some of the contacts that never responded. And after I had something, they were like, oh, okay. And the New York Times then picked it up and did, I was in the New York Times like 2 weeks later. I was like, you totally ignored me before this.
No, yeah, that's how it works. But congrats. That's a pretty big achievement.
That's like, 100 closed doors, one opens, and you're just like, I'm going to make this most of my entrance.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great philosophy. And it doesn't really, I think people outside only see what worked out. So it's not like there's anything wrong about having some things that don't necessarily work out. So,
yep.
And I think something else that I think it's important to touch on, I don't want to talk, like we say 2020 was so difficult and everything, but I think sometimes it's a euphemism for what actually happened, because not just a pandemic, but in the United States, there were obviously like starting June, the amount of protests and people who really finally recognized how racism was present in the country, and people, like a lot of people, tried to stand up more and do more than they had been doing before to stand up against racism. That's a huge part of 2020 for me and what it taught me. Is there concretely, like it can be personally or professionally, is there anything specifically that you put into place in your businesses to grow your company and stand up against racism as a company?
Great question. I'm glad you're asking it. I felt like I heard from a lot of white people at the time how exhausting the time was. And I did feel like there was a lot of momentum, like we were talking about momentum earlier. And I think that there's a really great opportunity that white business owners specifically have, and privilege that they have, to be able to step up. And, I think we've constantly tried to be a business that acts with inclusive practices, and have that awareness, and not only have the awareness, but also amplify the awareness. So I was really excited, to be honest, that there was this revolution happening in some ways. But it was also really cool to have our couples like emailing me being like, I want to like talk to you about brainstorming anti-racist like practices at our wedding. Or like, I want to look through our vendor list and like make sure that we're supporting Black-owned businesses and people of color. And that, honestly, that made me really excited, because also it's just so depressing how little funding it goes towards Black-owned businesses. Specifically, Black women-owned businesses are highly underfunded. I mean, women-owned businesses in general are highly underfunded. Black-owned businesses are severely underfunded when it comes to investment funding. And so small businesses are a great way for people to use their dollars, if they're not investors per se, but we all are, to promote a diverse set of businesses. And so we went through, I mean, we did several things internally as a team. I mean, anti-racist trainings were things that were, that we did, that we had not done before. We hadn't also never promoted that to our couples. We'd always promoted premarital counseling, but we'd never promoted anti-racist training for our white couples. And we have a significant number of white couples. And so that was something that we were able to put out there to them and give them resources. We completely this has taken actually since July. We just finalized it recently because it went through multiple channels. We revitalized our vendor list. to make sure that it reflects the awesome and, you know, diverse community of Brooklyn that we live in, and supports businesses that we know a lot about, that we're promoting people that we, you know, also had a serious awareness also around what was going on in June and what's continuing to go on.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, we have always partnered with 4 nonprofits, and we added a nonprofit to our list, Campaign Zero. So our couples choose a nonprofit to donate to every time they get married. And so everything from the Center Against Domestic Violence, which is now URI, which is the first nonprofit, to Homes Against the Homeless. And a lot of these have really awesome inclusive practices within their businesses that do support people of color, Black people in the community. But we added a nonprofit. And from there, we've tried to continue to just be talking about it, whether it's, you know, as a team or online. Like, the conversation doesn't go away. It shouldn't go away.
Yes, for sure. And you mentioned anti-racist training, and it's something that I've started doing, like enrolling into a training like that. And I try to do more, and also do things that people can see, not because of performative action, but because you want people, you know, that everybody else is going to hold you accountable. So, but like, the anti-racist training is not always something that other people can see, but I think it's also like the most effective when you really take deep change into yourself, and you invest your time and energy into learning and that kind of stuff. So it's really, as a company, it's great to do that with your employees. And I also felt even more targeted as a white woman, because I saw a lot of businesses owned by white women who, were like, the CEO had to step out and this kind of thing. And it really made me realize what a responsibility we have as white business owners towards our employees, or, like you said, like, towards the vendors and clients that we work with. And sometimes it's hard to say no to a client because their values don't align with you. But if you have to do it, you just feel better. And I think on the long term, it's going to be more rewarding to only work with people that have the same values as you. Anyways.
Absolutely. I 100% agree.
Yeah. So that was really interesting. So with all that in mind, do you think are there like a few things that were really unexpected that came out of 2020 for you, positive or negative or personal? Or
Yeah, I feel like in some ways everything was unexpected, even if it wasn't, because it just feels like, you know, the longest year ever and also the shortest year ever. It's like we're in this space-time continuum, and it's like, what is time this year? It's just felt strange. On a professional side, surprises, I've been surprised at the pivots that we have made. That I mean, I've thought of myself as a resilient person, but so proud. I wouldn't say I was surprised, but I'm proud of the team and the way that they have been so entrepreneurial with me. I kept saying that to them. Like, recently we had a meeting. I just said, I just want you to know, I know that not everybody signed up to be an entrepreneur, but this year, everybody kind of signed up to be an entrepreneur in our business, because everything we did was like jumping off a cliff. Like, we don't know if it's going to work. We don't know if we're going to land. And they were like, just so game to learn new things and understand Zoom and attend trainings, and like, just be like, just go after it and not be afraid to try something new. And I tried to stress so much, like, you might fail. Like, we're trying something new. That's what you sign up for when you're an entrepreneur. And right now we're just doing new things, and you're kind of signed up to fail a little bit. So I've been surprised at how few failures, I mean, we've had failures, but how few in the sea of them that we've had, given how often we've jumped off the cliff. And then on the personal side, it's not totally a surprise, but in some ways it is. I think for a lot of people, this year brought, like, what's most important. You know, we've been hearing that a lot, like, what's most important. And for me, I'm so work oriented. I really do love the work. I love the people I work with. Obviously I love unplugging, and I love being at home and doing nothing also, but I think I could have put off starting a family, you know, for a while, because like there's never a good time. And my husband and I kind of looked at each other this year and we were like, should we just do this?
I love that.
Like, let's just start trying. And so I found out I was pregnant in September. I'm due in May, and I don't know. It's kind of like I mean, it's not like a business at all. It's not another business.
You can say it. That's how you approach it.
I'm sure this baby will remind me every day. I'm not predictable at all, Mom. But it is, like, in some ways a totally new adventure, and to be a parent and navigate that. So happy surprise in some ways, and just like life continues to go on, and there are seasons, and so that's my takeaways from 2020.
I would love if you could tell us how you see yourself, maybe taking some time off when you have the baby, or what you plan, because you seem to have a very good work-life balance. So I'd be interested to know.
Taking time off is really important, and so good for your mental health, your physical health, your family's health. Whether you're just going on a vacation, I don't care if it's a baby or not, but for family time, it was really important to me to take that leave. On Bandit side, that's a newer business, so there may be some things going on behind the scenes, but absolutely there will be a chunk of time where I am completely unavailable and unreachable, and I look forward to that because it's a recharge. And I think every new parent needs that, no matter what gender. You know, if you're a new parent, even if you're not the primary parent, you haven't birthed a baby, you also need some time, you know, and unfortunately we don't live in a country that provides that kind of time for people to adjust to a completely new reality. But I'm going to take some time for myself.
That's amazing. And I feel like very few countries really afford time for both parents equally, and that pisses me off.
For sure.
Tell us just quickly where we can find you, where the new things are coming, and all of that.
Yes, so you can find Modern Rebel on Instagram and on Facebook. It's at Modern Rebel and the word and co on Instagram, and on Facebook we're Modern Rebel Co, just put together. Rebelvirtual.com is where you can find our virtual services. We're not on the Instagrams or the Facebooks. And modernrebelco.com is where you can find Modern Rebel. For Bandit, we're Try Bandit, trybandit.co. You can check us out on the web, and our Instagram and Facebook, Try Bandit as well. So just look those up, find us. I'm Anthem of Amy on Instagram if you want to find me. Sometimes I talk about entrepreneurship. Wow, that's a lot of social channels.
Yeah, but I was going to mention your personal Instagram because you do these really interesting stories about entrepreneurship sometimes. So that was incredibly helpful. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to follow your journey and see how all these beautiful things evolve.
Thank you so much for having me, Mom. This is so fun. I love that you're doing this. It's really cool.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Okay, bye.